every one of us here have our history, right? You all grew up, and I don't have a clue about what your respective childhood histories were like. I'll just share a bit of mine. And perhaps you may be able to relate with it, even though I grew up out of the country, perhaps, maybe you can relate with it, yeah? So yeah, some of my most graphic memories from my childhood are memories of being sexually abused from the age of 4 all the way till the age of 10 or 11. And it's amazing, as I'm speaking to you right now, I can still remember stuff from the age of 4. Now, the abuse was unfortunately carried out by a person who, a family friend, but actually almost the same age group as me, but can say 5 or 6 years older to me. And it went on for a long time. Now, unfortunately, my parents, they were amazing parents, yeah? I'm so grateful to God for my parents, but obviously they had no clue. And the only reason the abuse went that long was because the person who was the abuser, he terrified me, saying, if you dare tell your parents, if you dare tell anyone, I'm going to, do something really bad, really bad to those you love. And me being a 4-year-old, I actually believed that. And I was actually silly enough to believe it all the way till the age of 10. All right. And I was very terrified. So I did everything I could as to beg my parents. When my parents would say, we're going to go to that person's home, I would throw a tantrum in a fit, and they couldn't understand why. I'm sure they couldn't understand why I was throwing a fit. But I should just do something to beg and say, no, I don't want to go there. And they used to say, come on, behave yourself. I know you enjoy playing, with the kids and stuff, but they didn't know that the eldest guy in that home was actually carrying out this abuse. And so, yeah, just a word of caution for parents: keep your eyes open, okay? I just feel like I had to throw that in there. So that went on until one day, finally, it was a night. We had spent the entire day, and so my parents knew this other family, and so family friends, very close, and we were leaving from this home, and I was in the car, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I just said out, I hate going to their home. I don't want to ever go to their home, because by the time I reached 11, right? So I was able to be a bit more vocal, and I could actually, and finally my mom said, why are you saying that? And I was in the back seat, and I just blurted out, because he does this to me. And I will never forget it. It's still a vivid memory in my mind. My dad and my mom burst out crying in the car. And you have those roundabouts. You don't have many roundabouts here, right? But in the Middle East, you have a lot of roundabouts. And I can't tell you how many rounds my dad took with the car around that roundabout. I think maybe 10 or 15 times, because he wanted to go back and beat the living daylights out of that guy. And my mom through her tears, was desperately trying to convince him not to. And I, in the back, guess what I was feeling? Totally guilty. I made my mom cry. I made my dad cry. I did something wrong. Okay, so the first feeling of shame, guilt, and all of that kind of hit me then. I think you can also relate with this other part of what I'm going to share. I think to a large extent our lives and our schooling system and our society as a whole kind of programs us into living a performance-oriented life. So I think throughout school, and I don't know if you can relate with what I'm saying, but I know it doesn't happen here, but back there, doing well in studies is really, really important. I'm sure it's not the same here, right? No? Okay. I'm kidding. But doing well in studies was like super, super important, because it's not just enough to get, 80s, you have to be the best. And so when you came back home with marks and grades, it was not like okay, this is what I scored. Now, don't tell me what you scored. What was the highest score in the class? And so there's that constant, and so you even see that in most of the education systems, schooling systems. Performance is rewarded. You perform, you get the applause. You don't perform, you excel on the field, you get the praise, you get the rewards, you get the star treatment. You don't perform on the field, you don't perform in terms of academics, guess what happens? You don't get the star treatment. So you go through that from childhood all the way to adulthood, and guess what? You don't even realize it, but your whole identity is being formed through that whole process. And it's all about performance. If I perform well, I'll have friends. If I perform well, my parents will love me. If I perform well, teachers will love me. So it's totally performance-based. And then even for those of us who grew up in amazing Christian homes and all of that, you start looking at God and saying, oh, God, okay, I need to start performing. And so even if someone tells you otherwise, you're like, no, my whole life I've believed and I've been trained and I've been brainwashed and told that I have to perform in order to be accepted, in order to be applauded, in order to be celebrated. And now you're telling me I don't need to perform? No, that cannot be true. And that's what the world out there is struggling with. I don't have to perform? Are you serious? No incense sticks, no candles, no lamps, no mantras, no fasting, Are you serious? And so I think for most people, and I think I would throw myself in that list, grace didn't make sense. And it's not supposed to. It's a good place to see it, man. It's not supposed to. That's why it's grace. It's absolutely, absolutely awesome.